Hello all you fisher boys and fisher girls. Welcome back to another episode of Wolfpack Fishing. Today we're going to talk about saugeye and the lures to use for them, when to use them, where to use them, and most importantly, how to use them. First off, let's get into what is a saugeye. You might not even know what a saugeye is. A lot of people I meet out on the water, or I see posting, it's, oh, look at the walleye I caught, look at the walleye I caught. And it's a saugeye. And when I was younger, I used to think the same thing. My father told me the same thing. They were all just walleye. I didn't know what a saugeye was. I can remember where I caught my first saugeye. Now that I think about it, it was a discharge of Long Lake in the Portage Lakes by where the old red barn used to be, the beginning of the Tuscarawas River. I caught it right below there on a bobber and minnow, and my dad was like, oh, we got some walleyes. Me and my brother each Kenny caught one. They've changed all that now. No longer stock saugeye in those bodies of water because they don't want them making it into Lake Erie. But anyways, what is a saugeye? A saugeye is a man-made hybrid stocked. It's a cross between a female walleye and a male sauger. Now, why are they stocked? They have a faster growth rate than a regular walleye, and they're more temperature environment tolerant. Let's say where I live at, the walleye reproduction in our reservoirs, because where I live at in Ohio, most of our reservoirs, well, reservoir is a man-made body of water. Reservoir is reserve water. They're dammed up creeks, dammed up lakes. A lot of silt, poor spawning habitat, and massive overfishing. Our lakes are fished so heavily. So there's very poor reproduction on walleye in all of our lakes. There are a couple of them where there is a slight amount of natural walleye reproduction, but it still needs bolstered for the amount of fishing they get, because nobody lets walleye go, let's face it. I mean, that's like throwing a $20 bill, or the price now, a $20 bill and a 10 back in the water and watching it swim away, let alone their delicious fish. I mean, most people put carp back, but nobody lets walleye go. So we stock saugeye because they grow faster. Saugeye in our bodies of water, now it depends on body of water to body of water, and the amount of forage fish in that lake, the temperature of the lake. There's a few factors, but it'll reach 15 to 18 inches in 2 to 3 years. They have that quick of a growth rate. Versus a walleye, you know, it's going to be 6 months, a year behind. And at a put and take fishery where reproduction really doesn't matter, you'd go with the hybrid that's got a better survival rate. It's going to attain legal size limit. Some lakes don't have a size limit, and there's an argument for that. We'll get into that a little bit later, though. But so why not go with a hybrid, right? Now, they don't quite attain the same size as a walleye would. They get pretty big. There's a couple 8, 9, 10 pounders caught every year. I don't know what the state record is, but I know, I want to say it's like 14. I want to say 14 pounds is the state record. But, you know, they do try to reproduce. They go through the motions, but the reproduction rate of a saugeye is so minuscule. You could stock them in the most perfect body of water, and they would never be able to keep up with reproduction. They just fizz out within a few years. There would be no saugeye left in there. So they're only maintained through stocking, but they're just a better option in lakes that don't reproduce anyways. Now, about that argument as to why there shouldn't be a size limit, a lot of saugeye, picture a candle that burns at both ends. It's going to burn fast, bright, and then fizz out. Same thing with saugeye. They're going to grow fast, but they're going to die a lot younger. I've read a study by a fisheries biologist in my state, and he didn't understand why there was a size limit on them, because most saugeye, by the time they attain 18 to 20 inches, they're going to die. I don't know if that's just the males. I know the females get a lot bigger, of course, but just they don't live as long, so they expire quickly. And if more people kept limits of, because I used to fish a lake that didn't have the size limit, and I'd keep some 14, 13 inchers. And if you're keeping those on the stringer, some of the other ones that are maybe a little bit bigger, they're going to get to reach bigger size anyways. And, you know, there's catch mortality rates and everything, but, so there is an argument for there not being a size limit on Saugeye. I mean, you can have your varied opinion on that. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. A lot of people keep them under the size limits anyways, which I don't think is a good thing, especially if you get caught by the DNR, right? But, so there is an argument for a size limit or no size limit on Saugeye. They used to stock them in some bodies of water by me, but they did not want them making their way into Lake Erie. They didn't want them interfering with the walleye population of Lake Erie because that's a gold mine for Ohio. But even though there used to be natural sauger population in Ohio, we had two sauger populations. There's the Ohio River drainage sauger population, which is the other half of a Saugeye, and there was a Lake Erie sauger population. The Lake Erie sauger population was wiped out due to overfishing, overfishing and pollution, of course, polluted rivers. You've all heard of the burning Cuyahoga River, right? Lake Erie's come a long way, but still a lot of industry. So those were wiped out. I believe there's still rumors of a small population of sauger in the Maumee River. I'm not 100% positive about that. You'd have to ask somebody that knows a little bit more about them. I'd advocate to bringing the sauger back for an inshore fishery because they were closer to shore, the mouths of the tributaries of Lake Erie, up to certain areas. Pretty good sized fish too. Sauger do attain some poundage. I mean, most of them you're going to catch are some smaller ones. I actually got my first one out of the Ohio last year, or this year. Was that last year or this year? Boy, time flies, doesn't it? So that's enough about the history of the sauger and Saugeye. And walleye, I guess, combination. Well, you know what? I'd like to add a few more things to it. The habits of the Saugeye. It's not going to be quite the habits of a walleye or a sauger. It's going to be a mix of both. Walleye can be a little bit more finicky in a lot of our inland lakes. Suspending, hanging out deep, real particular. Only going to bite good on really low light conditions, chop at night. Saugeye will hit better on those conditions, of course, but they don't quite have the vision of a walleye, even though their vision is excellent because they're used to muddy rivers, muddy conditions, and they're a cousin of the walleye. But they're not quite going to be as picky. They're a more voracious eater. They're more aggressive. It's easier to limit out on them. Just a much more aggressive fish than a walleye. By far, they are not near as picky as a walleye at all. You could even catch them on bright days. Sometimes Saugeye will be sunning themselves in shallow water. That's right, you can catch Saugeye in even some really big ones in 2-3 foot of water occasionally. In fact, that's where you'd want to start for your Saugeyes. Really shallow and work your way out deeper. Most of the time, and that's kind of a little difficult thing about them too, are they hanging out under the lily pads? Or are they out there and 20 feet deep, suspending 2, 3, 4, 5 foot off the bottom on gizzard shad? Because their diet has a much wider range than a regular walleye. Like almost all of a reservoir walleye's diet, where I'm from, is gizzard shad. Suspending schools of gizzard shad. Out there eating on gizzard shad, gizzard shad, gizzard shad. Saugeye, you're going to find a lot of bluegills in their bellies. You're going to find a lot of bluegills, crappie, even crawfish in their bellies because they're going to be hanging out shallower in the weeds, rock points. And another study I read by a different biologist was the walleye, they more kind of like the rocky structure in the lakes, reservoirs. Saugeye prefer a gravel or small stone bottom versus big rocky humps. So that's one thing to keep in mind. A gravel or a sand bottom, They prefer that over rock. None of them like mud, but that's one thing to keep in mind too when you're looking at an area to target Saugeye. I'm tired. It's been a long day at work. I'm over here in the fine city of Omaha, Nebraska tonight, just taking a little break from work. I'm out here in my work truck, trucking along. All right, so I think that's going to do it. So let's get down to the lures now, if I haven't lost you already. So first we're going to start off with probably one of the most popular baits, the Swimbait, the plastic rubber Swimbait, or paddle tail, however you'd want to call it. Swimbaits, a lot of different lures are called swimbaits, the big musky baits, the big bass baits jointed, but swimbaits are swing bait. Some people call these paddle tails. They do have a paddle tail, but that's what it looks like in the water when you reel it in back and forth. They got that nice back and forth. That's what we call a swim bait. Looks like it's swimming. Nice paddle tail that goes back and forth. The water catches on that paddle on a slow, steady retrieve. It's just going back and forth, looking like a slow swimming lure. Now this one, well, we won't get into that yet. We'll stick in on how to use them. There's a couple different retrieves you can do with these and ways you can do them. Probably the most common and effective is just a slow, steady reel. Especially, this is a good bait to use when they're being kind of finicky, or even when they are aggressive, depending on how you fish it. But a slow, steady retrieve, you want to use just enough weight to keep this lure down near the bottom. Unless you're night fishing or fishing up top, then you'd want to use just enough to get it out there, an appropriate size hook, and keep it fishing at the depth you'd want. Because if you got too heavy of a weight, it's going to go straight to the bottom when they're more going to be looking up to the top of the feet. But under normal conditions, see, that's an 1/8 ounce. This is an 1/8 ounce size 1/0 hook on this one. This is a 2.75 inch big Joshy swim bait, in a nice purple color. That's a good color to use for them. Now, like I said, you want to use just enough weight where you can keep down around the bottom. Now, what's going to choose on what type of bait you want to use, what size weight, is the waves, how fast the waves are blowing you, or the depth. So sometimes you might need to up to a 1/4 ounce here instead of an 1/8 ounce. If you need to start getting over a 1/4 ounce, well, then you're fishing some bigger river systems, and not just lake systems. Then you're getting into heavy current, which would be like your Detroit River, Niagara, stuff like that, big river systems. But the two most common sizes are going to be an 1/8 ounce and a 1/4 ounce weight. A 1/4 is waves are kicking. You need to get it down near the bottom. Now, the other thing is hook size appropriation. This is a 1/0. This is a 2/0. And this is a 3/0. You're going to want to use the right size hook for the right size bait. A 1/0 will get you by on your 2 to 3 inches, or you could up to a 2/0. A 3/0 is going to be a little bit too big for that. That's going to be more for your 4-inch. Like this is what, 3 1/4. You could rock a 3/0 in this big Joshy right here. You know, it just depends. This style is that VMC Moon Eye. I really like those a lot. They just look gorgeous. I really like the eye on those. But the one thing I don't like about them is the hooks. Hooks can bend a little bit. I've lost a couple fish, big fish, to the hooks bending. But also a plus side to that is the hooks will bend out of a snag sometimes. You can see some of them got a little bit thicker hooks, but that's one brand that I really like. Now, when it comes to swim baits, I got my 3 faves in here. I got a bunch of different ones. I mean, I got a bunch of different ones. I mean, you can use Berkeley Gulp twitch minnows. Those are more of a twitch bait, though. They aren't paddle tails like these. I'm just showing you the paddle tails, which I really like and are really good for Saugeye. But I got my 3 fave paddle tails here. I got some big Joshies. I got, I don't know how you say it, Key-Tech or Kai-Tech. I'm not exactly sure. These are the Easy Shiners. They're a more slimmer profile, as you can see. That's a hot color right there. Electric shad, look at that. That looks good. Kai-Tech Easy Shiner. And then you got the Kai-Tech Fat ones. You can see they're a little bit thicker of a profile. They're ribbed for a Saugeye's pleasure. See, I got them up there to 3.3 inch. Now, different retrieves on these is that slow and steady, like I was talking about. Slow and steady. Just enough weight to tick that lure. Just enough weight to, tick that lure down along the bottom. Just ticking off the rocks, just getting that paddle tail going, wham, they're going to nail it. Another one is popping it. Popping it off the bottom. Popping that lure. And, you know, they're going to hit it on the rise or the fall. They really like to hit it on the fall. But the slow and steady kind of seems to be the most productive for them. Just because the paddle tail does all the work. It's making a lot of action. And then if you're fishing at night, you're going to want to use a lighter weight jig head. I mean, you could look at a 16th ounce. I wouldn't use heavier than 1/8. 16th ounce, but something with a bigger hook still, and you can fish that closer to the top. Now, colors to use, I think the chartreuse, the bright oranges, really bright colors, massively overrated for walleye, sauger, saugeye. Everybody says chartreuse, orange, massively overrated. The best colors are going to be your natural colors. You see what I got here? A lot of them are just that basic shad. Basic shad. You saw a lot of the clear bodies I have here. A lot of them are translucent with a little bit of flake. And I do got that translucent chartreuse, so because they got really good vision. I mean, the stuff where those really bright colors come into play is going to be muddy water, real muddy water at night. That way you give them a nice solid, and then I wouldn't use translucent. I'd use a solid body, so they can see it, even a black. So that's going to be your color selections. Stick to natural most of the time. More of a natural shad, bluegill. Water's really clear, translucent with a little bit of flake. So that's going to cover paddle tails, which is going to be one of the most versatile baits. Use them in rivers, use them in lakes, lose them up in trees, use them everywhere. So there's going to be the paddle bait swim tails. That's going to be bait number 1. All right, we're on to lure type number 2. This would be your stick baits or jerk baits here to use for saugeye. Now, these are going to be for a little bit more aggressive fish, night fishing, especially for the bigger ones. I mean, you'll get them on them during the day, especially with lakes that got some pike or some bass. You can throw these too. But these are more kind of low light conditions at night. Low light conditions, definitely. So we'll start off with, I don't have enough of these in this box. This would be like a size 8. This is the X-Wrap right here. A real good twitch bait. This is just a rainbow trout color. I don't really have everything I want in this box. I'd like to have a couple more of these and some size 8s, some size 10s. Size 8 is really about the smallest size you'd want to go to. This is going to be for your finicky ones, low light, maybe really low light during the day. You can use these size 8s, and that would go for the husky jerks. Also, that's a size 10. But you get these husky jerks in size 8, the X-Wraps in size 8, X-Wrap size 10. Low light conditions during the day, early morning, late evening, or at dark on a bright night. These size 8s would work pretty well. These aren't, they don't got the best side to side. These are a really good slash bait though. Jerk, 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 jerk. They dart really well, and they have some gorgeous colors to them. Next, we're going to go with the husky jerk. Now, this is a size 10. A size 10 is the first one down the size ladder that only has 2 hooks. Size 10 is a really nice size, like I said, for bright nights, low light conditions during the day. And the junior suspending rug is about the same size as a number 10 there. This is a Smithwick suspending junior rug. And then you start getting into the Smithwick suspending rugs, and we're going to go over in a minute why suspending is really important. Oh, look at those rattles. Well, that's what they hear. That's what really gets them at night. That vibration and those rattles really draws them in. This is a purple darter, hot color there. And the same size as a Smithwick suspending rugs, or also known as pro rugs. They're the same. This is a Rapala HJ12. Now you see a lot of my Lake Erie walleye videos, I'm using 14, which is a size up from these. These are the 12s. These are hot lures here. This is a Crown Clone, Chrome Clown, and then some clear bodies. I do have a decent amount of clear bodies in the size 12s. And in this box, I do want to throw in a couple more of the X-Wraps and a couple more size 10s in here, and maybe another size 8 or 2. I want to get a couple more 8s in here, and a couple more size 10s, and that'll kind of complete this box for me. But these translucent ones, you can even throw these on a little bit brighter of a day. I mean, look at that. That looks good. You don't want to go too bold and bright and solid body flashy like that on a real bright or clear water day. You'd want to go with something a little more translucent, you know, something that's not going to stick out as much, because they're already being pretty finicky. And that glass perch looks hot, doesn't it? Here's some of the color patterns I have in here. Give you an idea. Gold, gold, gold. They really like gold too. Saugeye walleye, stained water. They love gold. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. So now using these, of course you can troll them. I'm not the biggest fan of trolling. You guys rarely see my trolling in the videos. Trolling's kind of boring to me, but it is a very successful way to fish, especially for walleye, muskie. Very successful way to fish, just not my favorite way to fish. I like casting, I like working baits, I like feeling the fish bite. Trolling doesn't really give you any of that unless you're holding the rod. It doesn't give you any of that. You're just trolling. More power to people that troll. Maybe when I'm a little bit older, I'll troll a little bit more, especially for muskie. Boy, those baits are tough. But I really like casting. I really like working lures. I love that bite. Whams in that hook. Damn, that's hot. Bumps in the dark. Love it. So working these baits, slow, steady retrieve, of course. What you're really looking for, though, is the pause and twitch. That's the hot ticket. Pause and twitch. Sometimes, especially at night, you're looking at, you know, more than a second, more than 2 seconds, more than 3 seconds. You're going up for a 5 to a 10 second pause sometimes at night, especially if the water's stained. A 5 to 10 second pause. And that fish is going to looking at it in the moonlight, thinking about it. And it's going to wiggle around in those waves a little bit. Wham! It's just going to nail it. It sees that flash, sees something it likes, and it's going to hit it because it's looking like a dead, dying bait fish. And that's what they want. So another tip with that is keep your line really tight to it while it's paused. If you've got a lot of slack line out there, you're not going to feel it when it hits during that pause, because it's not like a steady retrieve. You need to have tension between you and the bait while it's paused, or you will not feel it. If you got bend or too much line out in between it, slack, you're not going to feel it, because it's just going to hit it. You don't have that direct tension. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So that's pretty important. Another thing is braid. I love braid. I love braid line. There's only a few instances I don't like braid, but I love braid line. Just the sensitivity, the castability really helps out for those sensitive bites. And sometimes these fish can bite really sensitively, especially in the pause and twitch, for the reason I just explained. Now, a lot of you guys, oh man, I don't want to tie those fancy knots to the braid, to the fluorocarbon leaders. because with these fish at night, you can get away just going straight braid to your lure. But I like the fluorocarbon for several different reasons. Mainly is visibility. In clear waters, I've tried explaining this to several people. You have to have that fluorocarbon leader. It's just such a huge advantage, massive advantage. But if you don't want to tie those fancy knots to get from your monofilament, your fluorocarbon leader to your braid, which I gave up doing a long time ago. They just take forever to tie. Just get yourself some appropriate size barrel swivels. Just don't reel them in through your tip. And that's what I do. And just tie on a 2 to 3 foot leader of fluorocarbon. And one, it's going to help with line twist too. And if you use a size appropriate barrel swivel, fish isn't going to see it. And if it does see it, it's going to just think that whatever bait fish you're throwing is maybe chasing a little bug, because that's all that barrel swivel is going to look like. Don't use a real bright shiny one. Just get yourself a nice black size appropriate one. Big walleye, Saugeye ain't gonna break that. I mean, I use that size for these Erie walleye steel. I even use smaller for steelhead. So, another piece of hardware you need to be using is your lock snaps, not the ones with the barrel swivel attached. Do not use those ones. Just get the lock snaps. One thing it's going to do is, and you want to use size appropriate, like this is 30 pound, still a pretty thin wire. Don't get the ones that just straight go in. Get the ones with a little bit of locks on them. Because the other ones, the cheap ones that don't have the lock on them, they are just going to get pulled out. A big fish will pull it right out. Even occasionally, a big fish might pull one of these, but that's life. If you fish a lot, it's going to happen. A lot of things happen. But this is going to do two things using this lock snap. Main thing is it's going to allow your lure more action, because you're going to have that loop. That loop right there, it's going to let your swim baits swim around a little bit more. It's going to let your jerk baits have a little bit more action to them, and which is excellent. And two is switching baits. No clipping down your leader line because you're constantly clipping. Got to tie in a new one, which you eventually do with abrasion anyways. But to save it, you just unsnap it, put on a new lure, snap it back in. I used to never use them, but really got into them. Extremely beneficial. Use size appropriate, different pound test wires on these. This is 30. I mean, I'll use 20 on like for little ice fishing or little stuff, but 30 to 40, depending on lures. Like my Erie stuff, I got 40, but definitely is going to help out with action. So I believe I went over everything with the jerk baits here. So jerk bait, stick bait, definitely a lure you need to get into. I think I went over everything with that. Let's get on to the next bait. Wait, I never topped off on why the suspending. I said you want to get baits that suspend for doing this casting. I'm going to tell you why. Remember I was talking about the pause and twitch, going slow. Use a floating bait. It's going to rise back up. It's going to get out of that strike zone. You want to keep it in the strike zone. Let's say you're fishing 4 feet of water. You don't want to be dragging it on the top. You want it right there where the fish is at. You're casting into 8-10 feet of water. A couple good cranks, get it down there. And then you can fish it really slow and it won't rise back up. It's going to stay at the depth that you cranked it down to. You do the pause and twitch. If you take a floating lure and you let it go for 5 to 10 seconds, it's going to be right on the top. That fish is going to be looking at it right here, a couple feet down, and whoop, lure rises right up. And at night, it's boom, you're out of the strike zone. You're away from the fish. And these do dig down. A lot of these are like 4 to 8 foot divers. And okay, so you're casting into 3-4 foot. How are you going to keep it from dredging the bottom? Jig up, reel upwards. If you're fishing shallow water, jerk it really slow. Hold your rod up high, jig it up high, and that'll keep your lure from digging into the bottom when you're casting in very shallow water. So there, glad I remembered that at the second. That was a pretty important key. All right, we are now on to lipless crankbaits. Everybody calls them rattle traps. Why? Because rattle trap was the original Lipless crankbait. If there's one before that, you can comment below. In fact, really quick, hit that like button, bro, sister, whatever, something in between. Hit that like button. Come on, help a brother out, man. I'm fiending for likes here, okay? I need them. They help promote my content. When you guys watch these videos, don't hit that like button. You're pretty much giving me the finger and not the tap finger that I'd like. If you watch a couple of my videos, you like my content, I'd really appreciate a subscribe. Even if you don't want to be notified when I post something, just turn that notification bell on or off if you want to be notified when I post a video. I try to not post garbage content. I promise to try not to. Occasionally I do, but I won't post any cat videos. I'm not gonna post anything like that. I like cats, but not enough to post videos about them, so help a brother out, man. So back to lipless crankbaits here. So I got a couple of them here. One, well, that baby's seen some action. That is a Rapala Rip and Wrap. This is a Yozuri something. Yozuri. Another Rapala Rip and Wrap. That's hot. Some Rapala slab wraps. So, I mean, there's a lot of different variations, but you can see what I have here is mainly Rapala Rip and Wraps, Yozuris, and Rapala slab wraps. I am missing a couple from this box. I've been Saugeye fishing for a while. I need to put in a couple more of these size 5s. More like the size 5 size. I'm missing a few of them. Alright, so let's get into the sizes on them here. Like this would be a size 5. It's a good size. This is size 6. I throw a size 6 a lot. I throw a size 6 quite a bit. This is honestly probably my favorite color pattern here. I use that for a lot. Boy, it catches a lot of fish. This would be a size 7. A bigger, more aggressive fish. Match the size of the shad or the bluegill in the area that you're using. More finicky fish, of course, go smaller. You go smaller. More aggressive, bigger size shad. Yeah, don't. That's like the biggest you're gonna throw. That's for a real hungry hog right there. But these size 5s, size 6s, you know, that 2-inch, 1.75 inches. You know, because these, you know, what is that, 1.75 inches, maybe. You know, it's got a much bigger profile than a Swimbait. I've caught on little 2-inch crappie jigs and stuff. I've caught some Saugeye. They'll hit little 1-inch baits sometimes. But that's not really what you use to throw them. Like those big crappie baits, like the 2-inchers, they'll hit them. But you can see that's got a much more bigger profile than like a 1.75 inch, you know, little plastic bait. It's much wider, but that's a good size to use. So think size 5, size 6s. You can see what size. Don't go too big. Don't really go much smaller. What are these shad patterns? Look at that. So you can see I got a little mix of Tutti Frutti. I got a lot of natural. Tutti Fruttis are what I call these. Flashy looking. Well, I love that voodoo, man. This is a hot looking color. So now how are you going to fish these lures? My favorite way is to jerk them. Let them hit the bottom, rip them up. Let them hit the bottom, rip them up. That's a really cool thing about these. You can work any water depth with these. Any depth in the water column. You see fish suspending, you're out there, you're not marking them. Well, normally you don't mark fish when they're shallow because they're just holding tight to the bottom. You can't mark them unless you got one of those fancy front-facing sonars everybody's getting into, which I doubt I'd ever get one. I get fish without them. I don't want to watch that screen all day. But more power to you if you got it. It ain't my thing, and even if I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't want to get one. Ray's 360 is pretty cool. He knows where to cast. He sees the fish as that thing goes around and he casts at him, which is pretty cool. I do all right without all that stuff. The only electronics I've ever fished with on my boats throughout the years, a suction cup, Garmin. It just shows me the depth, fish. That's all I need. I mean, I know where I'm going. I just want to know what depth I'm at. See a couple fish, see what depth they're at. So you can cast these out and yo-yo them, jerk them, rip them. Shallower water, pop them off that bottom. You see fish suspended out there deeper, let it drop down to that fish's level and jerk it up, jerk it up, jerk it up. Start off with a little bit harder jerks, ripping it, and you're gonna feel them. They're being a little finicky, slow down your jerk, or do a steady retrieve. You can fish these with a steady retrieve also is applicable. These are for aggressive fish though. I mean, or for aggressive fish when you're ripping them, and boy, do they hit them hard. Or you can slow them down, or if you see fish there, you can just keep it right in front of the fish, especially if you're vertical jigging. You're right over some fish, you can vertical jig these also. Just drop it down to the level they're at, and if you're not getting them ripping it, slow it down a little bit, kind of make it dance. Make it dance a little bit there. So, lipless cranks, give them a try. Very versatile bait, very effective, especially for aggressive fish. I really wouldn't use these at night, although you can definitely use them at night, because the vibration and the rattles these things put off, they let the fish know there's bait in town. And now it's time to get the metal out. And by metal, I mean heavy metal fishing lures. Actually, first concert I ever went to in my life was Metallica. Pretty good show, but my tastes have definitely changed since then. Not really the world's biggest fan. I'll jam out to a little Metallica, but not my favorite band by far anymore. So, let's start off over here on the left. We have jigging spoons. These are heavy jigging spoons. One of the worst parts about fishing is the hooks, isn't it? They're always getting you one way or another. So we got jigging spoons here. This would be a War Eagle. This is a 7/8. Boy, that's a heavy one. Deeper water, fishing a little bit faster. This is a cotton cordell. One thing I learned from Jimmy is those hooks kind of suck. You might want to change that out, or not. You lose a lot of them. Your choice. This is a cotton cordell jigging spoon, 1/2 ounce. It's another War Eagle jigging spoon, 1/2 ounce. War Eagle silver, 1/2 ounce. This is the expensive ones, the Hopkins. Those Hopkins are expensive ones. I don't know what this one is. Maybe a 3/8, a quarter. These Hopkins are the real expensive ones. And we got some Moonshine Minnow jigging spoons, 1/2 ouncers here. So we'll just talk on these. I picked these up off eBay. Those look hot. Wow. Have you ever seen more shad than that? I mean, I think these are, I don't know what these are. Maybe 5/8. They're definitely a little heavier than a 1/2 ounce. But have you ever seen anything that looks more? I haven't even thrown these yet, these ones, but it looks more like a baby shad than that. I mean, that's hot. That's a really hot lure. I'm going to throw that when I go out Saugeye fishing next. I've been waiting to throw them. So let's talk about the jigging spoons before I get into the other ones. So we got the War Eagles, the cotton cordells, and the Moonshine jigging spoons. Now, I used to always think spoons were horrible lures. They were ancient, outdated lures. Who would use a spoon? Well, I really got turned on to them, especially by Jimmy. I've caught a couple of fish on spoons throughout my life. Never really too much into them. Well, you know what? I use them ice fishing and stuff, and for steelhead, but not really too much open water. I've thrown them a few times, but always kind of shied away from them. Thought they were outdated, but let me tell you, they're hot lures. So the jigging spoons, they're heavy. Heavy pieces of metal. Constant movement. Constant. You can make them dance. Pop, 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 pop. You got to make them dance. See? You can reel them in if you got some current or deeper water. But the real key is pop, 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 pop. Just like that, making them dance. You're going to lose them. They're going to snag on the bottom, but they're affordable. Not those Hopkins ones are a little pricey. Those War Eagles, cotton cordells, they're a fair price. You can get them for like 2 for $6, 2 for $5, something in that price range if you find them the right place. But pop, 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 making those babies dance along the bottom. Suspending fish. Let them get down to the depth that the fish are at. Pop, 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 pop. Make them dance, or just vertical jig. You know, like that. You can do a steady retrieve with them and they wiggle. I got some fish on the Ohio River with them like that, but I wouldn't fish for Saugeye with them like that. These are, if I can just say one thing, pop, 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 pop. Last time I'm going to say it. That's how you fish them. You'll be able to feel them, make them dance. Make the jigging spoons dance. That's how you're going to fish them. Not much else to say about them. Gold's a hot color. Get gold, get silver, and experiment with some other colors. You know, sometimes they want that white, that chartreuse, you know, but we went over the colors earlier. That's it about jigging spoons. Hot bait. Definitely get into some if you haven't. Now, let's move on to the next heavy metal here. You know what? We'll just come on over here. We'll do those next. We got Flutter spoons. These are slender spoons, I think from Jig and Spin Company or something like that. The hooks that come with those are a little bit smaller. I haven't changed them out. Other things, some of these lures come with real generic hooks, especially like that cotton cordell here. But these slender spoons, that hook is too small for it. I really should change it out. Another. See, look at that hook. Doesn't it just look too small for it? It's a slender spoon. That had like a red holographic on it. I took it off though just because I wanted a solid gold. Here's some UV moonshine Flutter spoons. They're called Flutter because they flutter. They're not just going to sink like a jigging spoon. They're going to flutter on their way down. So you make these dance too. You can reel these in on a slow, steady retrieve. They're not as heavy. See, I got some Flutter spoons in there. A little bit of everything I got in there. But these Flutter spoons are a lot slower. They're going to flutter on their way down. So you can fish them a little bit slower. You can fish them a little bit shallower. You can fish them over top of weeds because they're going to take their time. So those slender spoons and the moonshine ones, those are just two examples. There's so many different kinds of all these lures. I'm just showing you what I got, what I like. So you can pop them, make them dance, same way, but you can fish them a little bit shallower and a little bit slower, or you can fish them deep also if you want that nice flutter. So fish them the same way, but remember they got a nice little flutter. You saw me catch some nice bass on those down there tapping, and missed a couple and got a Saugeye on them. So you've seen those Flutter spoons in action. That's going to do with the Flutter spoons. Get yourself some. And last but not least, the infamous, ow, damn these hooks, the blade baits. This is a Vibe, one of the most popular ones in the area. The one thing I don't like about them is that split hook on the back. Always bends. It always wraps up around the lure. Boy, these things tangle. But they are a fish catching machine, blade baits. Vibes are one of the most popular. Actually, I think the most popular is the head and sonar. I think those are the most popular. But as you can see, I've got a few different kinds of blade baits in here. Definitely a few different kinds, but most of them that I have are Vibes. But I do got some other ones. I actually just placed a big order of blade baits through David Turbin. David Turbin does some custom paint lures at a fair price. I haven't got them yet. I haven't got to throw them, but some of the patterns look pretty hot and they're a fair price, so can't wait to get them in and try them. Two most common weights are going to be 1/4 ounce and 3/8 ounce. Once you start getting to a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, bigger rivers, bigger current. These are hoppers. These are hopping baits. Just like I was talking about the rip and wraps, these are rip, rip, rip. Let it hit the bottom. Rip, rip, rip. And you're going to feel them. They don't got the rattles, but they got that vibration. Oh, boy, do these got vibration. You can feel them. A lot of guys use them ice fishing too. I've got a couple fish on them ice fishing. I'm not the biggest fan of them ice fishing. They definitely work. Use them. Give them a try. A lot of different colors here. This is a really, really hot color pattern right here. But a lot of variations of these. Like I said, the Vibe, V-I-B-E, and Head and Sonar seem to be the most popular. Age-old lure. Fantastic lures to use. You can use them night. You can use them during the day. They're kind of fishing the same way. Like I said, those rip and wraps, except these are a smaller profile and they don't got the rattles. So if you're throwing some rip and wraps and they're not hitting these, throw these. These are probably more popular with the Saugeye guys around here than actual lipless crankbaits. These blade baits are what they're called. A spectacular lure, but rip them. I wouldn't throw these too much in rivers or places where there's a lot of snags. You're going to lose these. You're going to lose a lot of these lures. They snag up on everything. 2 treble hooks on a piece of metal just ripping off the bottom. Another thing is, and you guys that use them, you're going to know, you get them a lot right here in the chin. You're going to catch everything on these, whether they want to be caught or not. You're going to catch bluegills. You're going to catch catfish. You're going to catch perch. You're going to catch carp. You're going to catch everything in the side, the belly, the fin, the top of the head, because these are a thin profile blade bait ripping through the water. Yes, fish love them. Yes, most of the fish you're going to get are going to be in the mouth eating it. A lot of the walleye you're going to catch are going to be right here. And I'm going to tell you why. With that blade, you're ripping it. You're ripping it. You're bouncing it along the bottom. It hits the bottom. That walleye comes up over it. You rip up, bam. You just got him right there. And he's probably about ready to bite it anyways. Maybe he was slashing at it. Maybe one of the hooks got him in the mouth. But you know, he was looking at it. He was hovering right over top of it. And you popped him in the chin. So they get fish. But they do eat them. They love them. Definitely get yourself some of these. But expect to lose them too. Really hot bait. I do got some moonshine shiver minnows in here. Not really going to go over these too much. I mean, they're like a Jigging Rapala. Open water, vertical jigging is the main thing for these. I haven't really fished with them much. I really more kind of have them in here for reservoir aggressive walleye. But I didn't get to use them this fall. I've been doing other stuff. I've been working a lot. And then that New York trip I took, which if you haven't watched those New York brown trout steelhead videos I got, you need to watch them. What an adventure that was. Got my biggest brown, my biggest steelhead, which broke my leg, which I'm finally healing from. Awesome, great time. But these are a vertical jigging lure. These jig a little bit. I'm more of a fan of the Rapala jigging wraps, jigging minnows for ice fishing, but these dance a little bit more. They dance around a little bit more, but those are more for walleye. I mean, the Saugeye, I like them, I think, but I haven't really thrown them much yet, so that's going to be it. I think I went over some of my favorite baits. There's a lot of different baits you can use. I only went over a few of the brands. There's a lot of different brands. You know, I didn't even get into crankbaits. Crankbaits are really popular, but I don't have any in my box. A lot of guys troll them. They don't stay down the depth as much, but like shad wraps, flicker shads. You get into trolling, flicker shads, shad wraps, size 5, size 7, even size 3 when they're shallow in the spring. Steady retrieve, you know, size 5, size 7 are really popular. Size 5 is probably the most popular. But I didn't get into a lot. I just went over my top ones. If you like commenting, any questions, except exact locations where I'm going to be shore casting or fishing, feel free to ask in the comment section. Or hope you guys are getting out enough. You get out, do some more fishing before everything freezes. Personally, me, I ice fish. Really hoping on getting some ice fishing in this year. Kind of getting antsy to get into some more steelhead. But I hope you guys get out and you fish enough. I don't get to fish enough. I'm not outdoors enough. Not as much as I'd like to be. God, I work so much. I hate it. But we all need more time out on the water. And we all need to make more time for it. We need to make more time to be outdoors. Get away from these neon lights, LED lights. And concrete and granite countertops. We got to get outdoors. That's where we belong. So, hey, subscribe. If you guys ever see me out on the water, come out, say hi, and have some etiquette for your other fishermen. Lake Erie, I've been running into a lot of goofballs this year. Boaters, shore fishermen. Let's show a little bit more etiquette to each other out there too. I mean, we're all out there to have a good time and get away. We don't need the stress. We don't need problems. So, hey, Wolfpack fishing out, man. Get out there, fellas. And I'll see you out on the water.